The Police Narcissist, Video Analysis. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Recently, I provided you with two excellent and insightful videos about why narcissists are drawn to police forces or police services, why there are more narcissists than usual, than average, that can be found within such organisations, and why it is that narcissists are drawn to this, what it is that joining a police force provides for the narcissist. And if you haven't watched those videos, I very much encourage you to do so to increase your understanding of narcissism generally, but also this particular facet of society. Here, I'm going to provide you with some videos for you to watch and make a determination as to whether you can see a narcissist at work within the police. The individual concerned is a police sergeant with the Sunrise Police in Florida. Yes, good old Florida, home of the newlywed and the nearly dead, and of course, multiple headlines of Florida man does this or Florida woman does that. But leaving aside the mockery of Florida, which is a great state, I always enjoy my visits when I frequent that place, let's have a look at the videos. I'm going to play you two. The first one shows you what's going on from the body cam of another police officer. So you will see the police sergeant arrive partway through what's going on, where an arrest is being made of a black chap. And then a second video, which shows you the perspective of the police sergeant when he comes on the scene. First up, the third-party perspective. Here it comes.
Stop pulling the handcuffs from my wrist. Hold it real quick so I can unlock the car. Like I'm running somewhere. I'm right here. Miss, can you stop pulling the handcuffs on my wrist? God, you don't listen. You're not stronger than me, miss. I'm letting you know that.
All right, let's go. We're going to take a seat.
Watch your head getting into the car. Ah, miss, can you stop pulling the cuffs?
Just get in the car and you'll be fine.
Get in the car. Get in the car. Pulling the cuffs on my wrist. Once you get in the car, she'll let go. So watch you say pulling.
So just get in the car.
She's gonna break my wrist.
All right, just get in the car.
Can y'all just tell her to stop?
Okay, get in the car.
Get in the car.
Just get in the car.
All right, I'm getting in. Get your feet in. Hey, look at me. Look at me. Look at me. You want to play games? You're playing with the wrong motherfucker. You gotta do that. You gonna mace me? Mace me. Look at me, motherfucker. You want to play games? You ever get disrespectful with my officer? I will remove your soul from your fucking body. Do what you gotta do.
No.
Touch me again. Get the fuck off.
Just let it be.
I don't understand that.
We clear? Yes, sir. And I'll see you in about 5 minutes.
Like, so what?
That gives you a view from the body cam of another police officer of what has been going on. Next, you'll see the body cam of the police sergeant who we are scrutinising. Observe his behaviours, having seen it from another person's perspective, and also now from the first-person perspective, so that you can determine, do you think that you see a narcissist at work here, and on what grounds? Here comes the second piece of footage.
On my wrist, I can't get in the car, she'll let go. So watch you got it,
So just get in the car.
All
right, just get in the car.
No, he doesn't want in the car. Get in the car. Get in the car. All right, I'm getting in. Get your feet in. What's up? Hey, look at me. Look at me. Look at me. You want to play games? You're playing with the wrong motherfucker. What you gotta do, man? You gonna mace me, mace me. Look at me, mother. You wanna play games? You ever get disrespectful with my officers, I will remove your soul from your body. Well, do it, man. Do what you gotta do. Don't ever touch me again.
Sir.
Get the off me.
Sir. Just let it be.
Okay, Barry, I don't understand that.
We clear?
Yes, sir.
And I'll see you in about 5
So
minutes.
returning to the original footage, we see the black man has been arrested by 3 white police officers and has been marched towards a vehicle, and he's complaining about the cuffs being too tight, and they're yanking on the cuffs as he's taken over to the car. The door's opened and they're attempting to get him inside. He's protesting about the tightness of the cuffs and won't get in. They're urging him to do so, and then along comes our police sergeant, and as they're trying to get him in, urging him to get into the vehicle, the police sergeant comes straight over and, without any assessment of the situation, almost like a bull into a china shop, he decides that he's going to sort this situation out. Moving another police officer outside, he puts him at the centre of matters, leaning in and making it clear in no uncertain terms that he's in charge here and this guy better sit inside the vehicle. He's leaning in, he has a can of mace there, and it looks like he is asserting control, and then another officer runs forward and yanks the sergeant by his belt, provoking him, causing him to turn and put his hand upon her throat and admonish her. He then returns back to the vehicle, opening the door and basically making sure that the suspect knows that it's dealt with, and then he tells the relevant officer that she is going to be seen in 5 minutes' time. So, what have we witnessed there? Well, 3 officers semi-struggling with the recalcitrant suspect who won't get into the vehicle. But the police sergeant, when he arrives, he walks straight in. There's no assessment of what's going on. It might be that he already knows because he's been told over the radio. So, quite possibly, he has an assessment of the situation, but we don't know. When he does arrive, however, he doesn't give the impression that he's aware of what's going on. He just sees that his officers are struggling with this individual, and rather than observe and let them get on with it, there are 3 of them after all, who easily would be able to get the man into the car, he looks to assert his authority as sergeant. And if he were a narcissist, he would be asserting control over his fellow officers who are non-intimate secondary sources, and over the suspect, who presumably he doesn't know, who's a non-intimate tertiary source. He's bullish and aggressive in the way that he steps into the midst of them all and immediately puts himself into the vehicle, and it appears that he might issue a slight spray of mace to begin with. It's not entirely clear, but if he's doing so, that's a transgression of boundaries, because although the man is being recalcitrant, he's not exactly resisting, and he's complaining about the cuffs. It's not that he's posing any major threat that means that he needs to be subdued with the mace. Indeed, there are now at least four police officers there who between them should easily be able to get him into the vehicle. But instead, by sheer physical presence, he intimidates the suspect by brandishing the can of mace, causing the suspect to say, "You go ahead and you're going to mace me then," and stands over him. Now, it's interesting, as he asserts that control over this individual, that another officer, the female officer, is suddenly motivated to run forward, and she evidently fears that something further is going to take place. Does she fear, perhaps, that he's going to mace this suspect without necessity, or that he's perhaps going to strike him? And she does so, and grabs onto the belt of the sergeant. This, if he's a narcissist, is a threat to control, and when she pulls him back, he immediately rounds on her. He doesn't swat her hand away and say, "What are you doing?" His response is aggressive, almost furious, as he put his hand straight to the throat of a colleague, telling her not to touch him. And she's saying, "No, sir, please." He doesn't listen to her, demonstrating poor listening skills. And then immediately, having subdued her threat to control by placing his hand on the throat and admonishing her, he then decides he's going to give the suspect even more. The suspect's already in the vehicle and the door is closed, so what need is there for him to go back over? The need is that he wants to demonstrate that he's the big man, that he wants to demonstrate that he's in charge. And therefore he opens the door and asserts control over the suspect again by saying, "Are we clear?" This, to my mind, is superfluous. He's already in the vehicle, the door's closed, they've achieved what they needed to achieve. It isn't necessary to go any further, but in his world it is. He needs to demonstrate his authority, because whilst he was demonstrating his authority, his colleague pulled him out of the way, and he wasn't finished dealing with asserting his authority and control over the suspect. He finishes that, and as he walks away, the presence of the female officer and what she did remains on his radar, causing him then, of course, to turn around and tell her that he'll see her in 5 minutes, issuing in effect a threat that she's going to be admonished further and disciplined. So that's what we see from the third person's, or the third party body cam. Now, let's go over what we see on the police sergeant's body cam. We see that he arrives and marches straight over, as we can see that there are the police officers around the suspect, 4 of them in total, in fact, and immediately he's straight in there and appears to give a little spray of the maces as the other officer trying to pull him across from the other side, and he's straight in there, swearing at the suspect, certainly being aggressive with him. The man's cuffed. He's already effectively subdued. He was just being recalcitrant about getting the car, and that's been achieved. He leans in, and of course he's then yanked back by the female officer, and there you can see that he puts his hand on her throat initially. She sort of pleads her case. The other officers look on rather stunned, but don't intervene, and back he goes again to assert control over the suspect by saying, "Are we clear?" And as he marches away, he turns and tells the female officer that he'll see her in 5 minutes. So that gives you a first-person perspective on the aggression. Accordingly, are we seeing a narcissist? Well, as you ought to know by now, we would need to examine this person's behaviour over a repeated period of time in order to see if more of these narcissistic behaviours are demonstrated. It could be that, for some reason, there are some external stresses on this individual that are causing him to act in this aggressive and unpleasant way. It might be, for instance, that he suffered a bereavement, or his wife's left him, or he's suffered some bad news, or perhaps he's come from another traumatic incident. So it could be that this is an individual that has emotional empathy, and it has been eroded, resulting in him acting out in the way that we've seen. And we always have to bear that in mind. However, on balance, I would suggest that this is likely, although we can't say for certain because we need to examine more of the behaviours, as I say, over a sustained period of time, it's likely that this individual is a narcissist. This is probably typical of the way this individual behaves. Goes in like a bull in a china shop. You can see by the reaction of those around him that they almost seem to know better than to protest with him. The other officers don't immediately intervene between him and the female officer. They stand to one side, almost as if it's something they've seen before, that they know better than to become involved with him. And it's likely that this is demonstrative of the way that this particular police sergeant goes about his behaviours. Certainly here, he demonstrates an arrogance, a sense of entitlement, haughty behaviours. He's dismissive. He's a poor listener. He's aggressive towards individuals. He uses bad language. He uses physical force. He uses threat. And therefore we do see the sense of entitlement, an absence of emotional empathy, a lack of accountability for his behaviours, haughty behaviours, grandiosity, aspects of manipulation, and potential aspects of the narcissistic dynamic. As stated, whether this all adds up to him actually being a narcissist, we would need to see more evidence, but it certainly raises a number of red flags that support that there's a good possibility that he is one. Did you identify the various narcissistic indicators that I referred to? If so, well done. If not, then you need to brush up on your skills. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.